know if we can legally play that song. Am I playing it? Does it count when you're using your mouth?
I don't know. Did they ever file a lawsuit against that guy who played that terrible harmonica Jurassic Park?
I have no idea, but I do know Lindsay Lohan's filed a lawsuit against Grand Theft Auto because the girl totally looks like me. They used me for her. Except, she doesn't look nearly as stoned as Lindsay Lohan always did. She was fine in the Parent Trap. Okay, she didn't look wasted in the Parent Trap.
It could just be that they just told her, "Hey, I need you to look like this stock photo." All right, let's do it.
Perfect. So Indiana Jones 5 is gonna happen. Because we love 4. 4 was really good.
Fantastic.
This is like the best Indiana Jones ever. Well, after that one with that old guy who was
right up there with Crocodile Dundee 3.
Oh man! Oh wow! When he stabbed the electronic snake with the snake with the knife, it was like so funny, so funny.
All right. Anyway,
So let's talk.
Let's not
Harrison Ford.
Yeah. What were we talking about Harrison Ford about?
Well, let's talk about. I guess we're gonna keep this mostly related to Indiana Jones 5, but is it just me, or does it sound like Harrison Ford wasn't too happy about Indiana Jones?
Oh, actually, he said that. That was actually a thing.
That's what I thought.
I don't really want to work with Steven Spielberg anymore.
And here's Steven Spielberg going, "Oh, hey, we're doing Indiana Jones. I'm going to produce again." And I'm like, and Harrison Ford being all like, "Hey, Harrison Jones."
Harrison Jones.
We named the dog Indiana.
Bruce McLean.
Anyway, so we've got this conundrum here. Now, also, this isn't something we hadn't heard before. Is that Harrison Ford was done with Star Wars. Like, it sounded like he was done with Star Wars. And then,
was he done with Star Wars? I don't remember.
I mean, I don't know, like, done, but he never seemed to have good things to say with his experience with George Lucas and Star Wars.
I know Alec Guinness didn't.
Yeah, okay, so...
But did he like Harrison Ford? I think he liked Harrison Ford. I'm not positive. I'd have to go back at read that.
You try to bring back all this stuff that you've seen at one point in time, and I mean, honestly, you want to think that everyone is just Mark Hamill, where he lives it up.
Super excited. And,
yeah.
Hey, you know what would be really great if you did another Star Wars? If this is mostly practical effects, because it's really important.
Yeah.
And
I don't think we got the impression that Harrison Ford was ever that. And then, Star Wars happened, and he comes back, and he's all like, "Hey, it was really great to work with J.J. Abrams, and this ended up, this was good. This actors were good. This
he
is
looked
really
like
good."
He was enjoying himself.
Yeah, it was like, maybe it wasn't Star Wars. Maybe it was just a certain executive producer.
Well, I mean, when you look back at Crystal Skull, if you took the movie and cut it down probably 45 minutes, the parts of it would have been fine. I mean, I know that we're angry about aliens and terrible
CGI aliens.
Besides the CGI aliens. So CGI aliens, people joke about nuking the fridge, whatever.
It was on the top.
And the things that made the movie kind of terrible was pacing. Riff Tracks did an amazing job of that. Every time that there was like this awkward silence that went on for like just way too long, they'd just be like, da na na na, no, okay. And it's like he was actually doing legitimate archaeology. Hey, let me go to this place and investigate this thing, and I'm gonna go look at this stuff, and this is very, very interesting. But that's not interesting. You're not. It's like you keep on expecting a trap to happen, and then nothing would happen. There's like huge points in this movie that they could have just cut entirely, and it would have been okay. We wouldn't have been angry, but
It's
we still would have been because the internet in the future.
well that
But-
too, but I mean it's the same way of saying everybody was angry at Star Trek Into Darkness. It still did really well, and it has amazing positive feedback from just a standard user watching experience. But there's enough Star Trek fans who are very loud on the internet, so yeah, I get that. But when you're dealing with the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I think the other problem is you're looking at a movie that tries too hard to be what it should have just naturally been. In other words, Indiana Jones is a guy who he always seems to pull it through. He's always got it together, but that doesn't mean he always has it together. Like, let's take Raiders of the Lost Ark. He gets thrown out of the windshield of the truck, and he's hanging on for dear life, and he grabs the hood ornament, and he's pulling himself up, and the hood ornament starts bending and breaking off. It's just those ideas of everything
he
is
wasn't good at what he did.
Yeah.
He was just
he just
tried to make it work.
He could improvise at the last minute.
I guess that's the same thing in sort of a Die Hard kind of way, though. Like,
Mm-hmm.
here's the way that Die Hard works. He's a guy who's competent at what he does, but he's not in the right place at the right time. Everything goes wrong for him. He's like, glass breaks, feet are bleeding all over the place. Good guys think he's the bad guy, shooting at him. Just everything that he does is a mistake. He gets injured, but he just barely pulls it off. But barely pulling it off is what makes him human.
He doesn't give up, at least, and we relate to that idea of just a little bit longer. You can do it.
Yeah,
And
and then
feel like that with John McClane,
and then you feel that, and then you hit Die Hard 4, and
he's
he's an unstoppable killing machine that can.
okay. So you remember the native scene in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull where they were in some kind of Aztec ruin, and there's these natives bouncing around with poison darts, and he's catching them, and then he blows a blow dart down this guy's throat, and it's like he's just super ninja Indiana Jones. That's not, no.
Like, they started with it with, throwing a whip over a light post, and then he, swings, but he doesn't know where to go, so he just sort of falls back into the truck or whatever. They start with the premise, and... Oh, okay, so the other half is the same thing that I felt went wrong with the Star Wars prequels. It's that Spielberg hit this same level where Lucas hit, where everything he says is gold, and there wasn't somebody to tell him, that's a terrible idea, don't do that.
Yeah.
And which is why it was really interesting with Jurassic World, that there was finally somebody who says, look, we can't use this. This is terrible.
Because I was like, oh, we got to hold that. But I think we should come back to that point, because we'll come to our good sides and the differences between this and between 5 and 4, and that's one of those points with Steven Spielberg involved. But the other thing too is you look at the bad guy in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the bad woman or whatever. Here's the thing: they had, if you go to Last Crusade and that one German Nazi, he just had a presence that he didn't have to say he was evil or bad or anything. You just knew.
You're talking about the dude with the glasses, right?
The dude with the glasses, yeah. He
just walked into a room and you're like,
yeah, okay.
Things are gonna go down.
They tried so hard to make the woman that, rather than just let her be that it just felt pushed, and everything in that movie ended up feeling forced. And that's just one more example.
Every scene felt forced.
Yeah.
I think about his interrogation with the FBI guys was forced. The conversation that he's having with his buddy at the beginning, where they're both at this Area 51 thing, forced. Everything just felt so unnatural in the way that you would speak to somebody or act to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the entire movie.
So we get to this, and we've got 5 coming because reasons. But
I hope they bring back Short Round. That's the dream.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about though This is Indiana Jones 5, and we've got two big differences now. A, George Lucas does not own Disney anymore, or Lucasfilms anymore. Disney does. And let's go back to that point. Steven Spielberg gets put in his place. Now, that being said, I wouldn't say put in his place he was in a really haughty, I know everything way. I think it's not. I think it's the industry's fault just as much, more so than Steven Spielberg's. Spielberg's been doing this for a long time. The industry basically says, "Oh, you're Steven Spielberg. Do whatever you want." It had to take in a lot of guts for this guy who nobody knows to say, "Look, this script is terrible. I can't do anything with this." He must have been going into that room ready to be fired, Colin Trevorrow. And Steven Spielberg looks at him and says, "Oh, we'll fix it then," and says, "Great, I liked it." That's actually super impressive to me that Steven Spielberg has the guts to say, "Okay, we'll go fix it, and I like that. Go with it." That's actually I can't blame him so much as he's just been doing it for a long time, and sometimes you get tunnel vision. And if everybody's afraid to say something to you, sometimes you can't come out of it just because people are afraid to say it to you, not because you don't want to come out of it. You don't realize it. Yeah. It's not on purpose.
Not, every time I put on my pants, it's just like you, one leg at a time. Except when I do it, it makes gold records. It's just
yeah.
It's that idea that you're infallible that gets in your mind on a high end level. That, well, not even just you, just everybody around you just agrees and is just yes men.
And then you start thinking, well, this must be good because everyone's agreeing with me. And then one guy comes out. Now, I have to say, though, I feel like the normal response for somebody in Steven Spielberg's shoes would have been, "How dare you, you're fired." So I'm really impressed that he was all like, "Oh, well, yeah, then you should fix it."
Yeah.
And Jurassic World was fun. It was a great ride. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It may not be cinematic amazingness, but oh my goodness, you should totally watch it. It's fun. It's a good fun watch.
Yeah. And, that's not to say that, George Lucas might not have done the same thing. It's hard to tell because he's always really protective about his own work.
Yeah.
But, there's two sides to that, though. One, if there was somebody who would have called him out on it, would things have been different? But, getting mad at his fans for things, it's only, like, sort of half of George Lucas's deal, because really he was a really big he supported his fans in a way that the fans forget. He always sort of let all the fan films happen. He let the community do whatever it wanted with its property.
Yeah.
But he was still really protective of his own stuff and felt that, he got first right to do something with that.
And to a degree, that's true. I mean, it is his property. Well, it was his property.
But yeah, he used to have, just fan film competitions, and he let these things happen without tearing down all the Star Wars community whenever they made something.
Yeah.
Unlike a lot of other companies that, I guess for another example, Die Hard, there's these guys that made this song for Die Hard. And they just spliced together all the footage of the different Die Hards right before the release of Live Free or Die Hard. And they got a takedown notice, and they're like, "Wait, no, this is giving us really good press. Put it back." And Lucas never had that problem. He never had the takedown notices to anybody unless they were legitimately, like, make... Well, actually, he didn't even take down... There's this old PC game, it's called Star Warped. He didn't take... There was nothing about that. They probably had the rights to it. But, he didn't take down this very fan-based Star Wars game that actually had nothing to do with a Lucasfilm property. And...
Well, to be fair, the internet's so full of Frozen and various Disney stuff that I don't know that Disney's really taking stuff down either, so that's kind of nice. But
yeah, they've been pretty nice about
But
all
they
that too.
did scrap the expanded universe, so that's, that's a little... That's quite a bit stricter than what George Lucas was doing.
Yeah, and I don't know if I should really apologize for almost everything coming back to Star Wars for me, but that's just who I am.
Well, yeah, no, it's all right.
Anyway,
But
Indiana Jones.
so I think really I hear the news, and if really, all right. So first off, if it had only been Steven Spielberg, I would have been, oh great, not this again. But the fact that Disney is going to be involved, they're kind of like they put on their pants one leg at a time, but then it turns into gold and they make millions. But they're at worst you're gonna be saying, well, hey, I guess that wasn't as good as normal, but it was still enjoyable. You usually don't walk out with a sinking, depressing, I just hate my life feeling. And yeah, I know internet, they say that they do anyway, but I think in general they're not really sinking. It's not Fantastic Four. Just can't seem to do anything but go worse.
Yeah, it's all Disney expectations are always, this is great, or it's amazing and better than the last thing. And if it's not amazing, then it's either okay or terrible, even though technically it's great.
Yeah.
Like
Expectations, they've just set themselves too high.
Yeah. And adding Pixar and Marvel and Lucasfilm, it's just they have like this huge conglomerate now.
And they have Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like, thank goodness.
Managed to grab Spider-Man.
So, Old Man Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones. Now that's where we start finding some hesitation. Can they do Old Man Harrison Ford right for an Indiana Jones role? Can an Old Man Indiana Jones work?
I believe it can if you're willing to do one of two things. One, take the approach the young Indiana Jones Chronicles did, and they literally made him got Harrison Ford to be a super old man. Well, not a super old man. He was like a moderately old man, and then they got another guy to play a super old man version of Indiana Jones. Or you'll just have to sort of commit to the idea of making him Sean Connery.
Okay, yes. Yes, definitely.
And just, he's lived out this life, and it seems like he's pretty much an Indiana Jones that's not even worth his salt anymore. But then he, I don't know, grabs an umbrella and scares away some pigeons to take down a plane. That's,
Henry Jones Jr. Okay, so yeah, Last Crusade, my favorite Indiana Jones movie. Not even a question. The chemistry of Sean Connery and Harrison Ford were just fantastic, and that movie is still, it's definitely one of my up there's as far as favorite movies. I mean, I love Last Crusade.
He was only 12 years older.
Yeah, I know. Which is hilarious. But so if they do that, then we've got to pass the mantle. Which means we need what? Replacement Indiana Jones? An Indiana Jones Jr.? Like for real Indiana Jones Jr.? Yeah, Junior
third. So, I mean, the internet already assumes that should be Chris Pratt. I say the internet, then there's the weirdos that are all like, it needs to have Shia LaBeouf. Just make Chris Pratt an old Shia LaBeouf. I don't know why that's so hard.
And I guess one thing I'll say about the Queen of the Crystal Skull is I wasn't angry about Shia LaBeouf himself. Like, for some reason, I wasn't that upset about him and his interactions with Harrison Ford. Now, the swinging... I was
upset about his Tarzan swinging.
Yeah, his Tarzan swinging and some of that retard stuff, yeah. But it wasn't so much him, and I was actually impressed. I felt like he's not so bad.
Oh, and that and the creeper stash.
But now there's today's Shia LaBeouf, and I'm like, no.
Do it!
No. Yeah, no. I can't... He just seems like that terrible Will Wheaton person, except Will Wheaton is just doing it for fun, and we love him for it. Shia LaBeouf is just being terrible. And we don't appreciate it. Will Wheaton's funny when he does it.
But, he's also... having been to PAX, he's also sort of the nicest, down-to-earth celebrity I can think of.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Will Wheaton's got a good reputation.
My friend wanted to give him a high five, but he's all like, "Nah, I got 6 last year, so elbows." You know, he would still interact with people even though he was very hesitant to touch anybody.
So, yeah, I mean, Will Wheaton, definitely better reputation. I don't see Shia LaBeouf taking that mantle, and not anymore. Like, it just... And I think the thing about your Disney characters in general is you've got these people. Look at Chris Evans and Chris Pratt betting on who's going to win a Super Bowl and who's going to dress up as their superhero counterpart for a children's hospital, and then they end up just both doing it anyway. That's the kind of people that Disney seems to get nowadays, which is awesome. We like to see that. Chris Pratt is already that, so
yeah. And with Chris Pratt, people give him a lot of crap because he's essentially the go-to guy for everything now because of Guardians and Jurassic World.
And, yeah,
and it doesn't matter. He's really good at being what that Harrison Ford and the old Indiana Jones seemed like, which was confident but not all there.
Yeah, and
which is exactly what he played in Jurassic World and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, if anything, he had a little more expertise in Jurassic World than he did in Guardians of the Galaxy. But Guardians of the Galaxy, yeah, just everything was barely there. Like, honestly, he should not have come out the way he did. Guy did not deserve that, but he did it anyway. So yeah, I don't know. Obviously Chris Pratt would be great, but
I don't really have any other things on the line for that.
It would be hard. There is that one guy who did a YouTube video where he kind of does Harrison Ford's
impression. Yeah,
the Harrison Ford impression.
So speaking of that, looks like they narrowed down the young Han Solo for the young Han Solo film to 3 guys that are not that guy. I can't remember his name. Actually, I can't even remember the name of the movie. It was Age of Adeline or something.
Oh, I don't even know.
Is where the guy did a impression of a young Harrison Ford. I think that was the name of it. I'm not positive. But yeah, so the young Han Solo thing, I'm always a little bit hesitant when it comes to doing things that are kind of already understood. But I've given a pass because of like, we know what happened with getting the first Death Star plans, but Rogue One's happening anyway, and I'm pretty okay with it. And that's a completely different discussion. But a Han Solo meeting Chewie movie, really, I just want it to be like him from like the Imperial Academy, growing up, whatever, and do that one line sentence that people understood from it. But being Harrison Ford is like saying you're trying to find the next Bogart. It's not something that's so easily to find.
It's not, and yet I will give Disney credit to this. They are the one who found the next Rey.
You mean just
Daisy Ridley?
Yeah.
Now she is not anybody that shows up on anybody's radar, and yet I don't think you could have found a better Rey.
That's true.
And I will say this: that guy on YouTube, sure, he's got an amazing impression, and that's cool, and I would be happy about that. And yet, if there's one thing that Kickstarter projects and stuff are teaching us, it's just because you can throw up a video on YouTube and show a really good impression doesn't mean that you've actually got the grit and the perseverance to do a legit Hollywood role.
Actually, that's a good point that a lot of people in the comments made, because it's like, it still seems like a Harrison Ford impression as opposed to owning the role and actually feeling like you are that person.
So I know that we get a lot of stuff where it's like, have faith in Disney, folks, and
we don't really mean that.
Yeah, we don't really mean that, but we can say that they've had a good track record. So I'm not too worried. That being said, the day that they let us down is going to be huge. And I'm sure it's going to happen sometime, no matter how hard they try. Somebody
they're just going to pick up the wrong property and
and it's just going to happen.
Go downhill.
So, but yeah, you know what? It would be interesting if what they're going to go for too is, now here's a thought: what if their young Harrison Ford is going to be their next Indiana Jones, and they're going to
that would be hilarious.
That would be kind of fun. They're just like, let's just bring back the '60s. Nobody's ever tried to do that before. Bell Bottoms, Scooby Doo. Let's just bring back the '60s, '70s, whatever.
I guess that time frame fits, unfortunately.
But, you know, they could do something like that, which would be kind of...
Indiana Jones in Vietnam?
Yeah, let's not bring back Vietnam.
let's
try not to do that.
That's a little touchy subject.
Yeah. Actually, we could really get it touchy if we could get your dad in here and do war rants. That's what we need.
Yeah,
right there.
I forgot to do that last time.
War film rants. That'd be fun.
But we'll do that another time.
So yeah, I guess I could say I'm leaning on the optimism side of an Indiana Jones 5, but
to be fair, I'm leaning on the optimism of Ghostbusters and all the other things that people have hate on. But you know what? If anything, I've learned that the internet will hate anything in large groups.
It's kind of the internet, and you know, this is why we're doing this. Is come on, internet, we're trying to teach you not to hate everything. Just at least hate after the fact.
Saying that makes them hate us.
Of course, you know, there is the fact that we hated Ben Affleck, Batfleck, pretty much from day one, till we saw our first Bruce Wayne trailer. We're like, no. And then we were like, no, it might not be so bad. And then we're like, you know, he actually may not be the worst part of this film. And they're like,
that's pretty good.
That's a pretty good Bruce Wayne. And then I watched a more detailed banter between him and Clark Kent. And he's all like, Daily Print, do I own that one? And I'm like, that was good. That was really good. So now I'm actually excited about Batfleck and excited about absolutely nothing else in that film. So, and Jeremy Iron Alfred. I still like that too. But outside of that, I'm kind of, whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think Indiana Jones 5 might be kind of fun.
I think it only has up to go from here. It's 4 hit that Star Wars prequels feel, and hopefully the 5 will hit at least. Well, I wouldn't give it a Star Wars 7 necessarily, but maybe like a 6.5.
Yeah. I guess the thing I'm still trying to figure out, the only thing I can't get my head around is what changed Harrison Ford's tune. I mean, it's very obvious that he was not the angry Harrison Ford that we saw from like Ender's Game. It kind of was just him. And he seems to have really just, like even just some of the Comic-Con pals, and he's definitely not on the nerd level. Like he does not relate the way like Mark Hamill does. Like Mark Hamill just feels like he's just one of the crowd when he's at those things. But and John Boyega, man, that guy is hilarious to watch on a talk show or anything. He's great. But but Harrison Ford definitely doesn't just seem upset to be there, just wishing he could leave either. He just seems to be really enjoying himself more. I'd love to know why that is, because I can't really place my finger on it.
So our running theory is spoilers to Star Wars if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, well, you should have seen it by now, so it's your fault.
Yeah, really. So if you need to skip another 20 seconds in, it's probably longer than that. So Han, the way that we assume that Harrison Ford was willing to come back to Star Wars is like, so if you're willing to kill my character, I will totally show up in this film. And we're wondering if maybe that's the Indiana Jones pitch too.
But you know what we're forgetting? And I don't know if that's Indiana. You remember why he wanted his character to die?
Because it was the original plan?
It was, but it wasn't just that. I forgot. He said this in an interview. I read this on an IO9 article or something. But he did talk about how he felt like the thing that really made Han Solo a really important character to that universe would have been his sacrifice. He felt like it cheapened his character to just be able to live through everything and just get, the super happy ending. It's just, there was it was to him it was a real mark of growth of his character to go from being a smuggler who only cared about himself to dying for the cause, literally. And I forgot about that. Now, it very well could be that he cares more deeply about the characters than we ever even knew. And Indiana Jones probably doesn't need that. He's an adventurer. He doesn't need that deep level of commitment to show how important the character is in his sense. And I'm not saying that would hurt the character either, but Indiana Jones doesn't have to die to prove that he's Indiana Jones. Where showing Han Solo dying for the rebel cause really shows where Han Solo came from and where he ended up at.
I know this is a little bit, not entirely off topic. The movie Monument Men. In the movie Monument Men, it was about they got a group of art historians to basically jump into World War II and try to save all the art from being destroyed by the Nazis. But they had to show up there because they're the only ones to know what's important enough to keep.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to keep everything. So what's interesting about that is one of the characters die trying to protect a piece of art, essentially. And I feel like if you were going to go out, that's the way to do it as your Indiana Jones, because it belongs in a museum.
Yeah. Or, there's even like The Last Crusade, even if it's not in the museum, or just it belongs where it was left. But yeah, same
or that.
Yeah. That's kind of the whole point of The Last Crusade is this is something that really doesn't deserve to ever be brought out to the world. And
give them sort of like the almost last.
Does that kind of happen in every Indiana Jones? The art gets boxed up and hidden after it kills everybody.
Well, they dump all the stones into the...
Except for the one that they leave at the village. They had to save one.
They had to save one.
But they left it with the village.
Yeah, left it with the village, and then Grail couldn't leave because it would destroy everything.
And but it also fell down a chasm, which kind of helped that cause.
Yeah. So it stayed where it was, roughly.
The other thing, too, about that, please, there is something about the religious aspect of Indiana Jones that is just fascinating. Don't make it science fiction. Let's get it back to biblical archaeology type stuff. It just, and I guess it doesn't have to be biblical, because even the Temple of Doom was more Indian archaeology. But let's make it legit archaeology, not...
Yeah, and what we always go back to is what the Uncharted series has been doing forever.
Yeah.
Take all of the legendary things that are really important and historical and forgotten about and make a practical spin on them.
Yeah.
All of them was the El Dorado, and...
Oh, the Tibetan place. The Fountain of Youth thing, or, Yetis and all that jazz. I can't remember. That's two.
Yeah. Yeah, my brain's drawing a blank on that place.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Anyway, it's just that you're taking something that everybody knows and making, well, not even, I guess Temple of Doom wasn't something everybody knew. But taking something practical and then making it either the opposite, essentially, and
making it something bigger.
So,
yeah. Yeah, I think we could, just give us something that we definitely are familiar with, and honestly, you can skin it with pretty much whatever you want. It's still going to be entertaining. I mean, for crying out loud, that's basically what Tomb Raider did. They're like, hey, let's just reskin Uncharted with Laura, and it worked. Woohoo!
Yeah, because as soon as you get into science fiction, you're just making Stargate.
Yeah. And
it's like, I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens.
Yeah. And not that Stargate didn't have a place in the world and was super enjoyable, but
it's also not Indiana Jones.
Exactly. And I think I have to say, Old Man Harrison Ford, I kind of really like. I mean, I like it when he growls at people. Just, he's pretty good at it.
Yeah. And I don't have a problem with old man Indiana Jones being a really angry, crotchety guy.
Just smacking kids with a ruler. College courses. You're not paying attention. So yeah, Indiana Jones 5. I mean, it's interesting. I gotta say, I wonder if he's just found people working with him in these newer studios, Disney studios, are just really pleasant to work with, and if that's changed his tune. And he may not ever say anything along those lines because he's not going to say anything bad about George Lucas and them specifically, unless he has, and I just haven't found it. But he could just be saving it, and it'd be nice to know. I mean, overall, it does seem like anybody who works in a Disney film, they seem to come away saying, these guys were awesome to work with and work for, and I would love to do it again and again and again. And that's pretty cool. That's a testament to a good, it's nice to see a big company like Disney, not being terrible, like everyone assumes rich people should be.
Yeah, it's true.
And, it doesn't have to be that way. And I feel like it's okay to say, you know what, it's okay to be rich. It's just, it's not, but you just don't have to let it make you into a terrible person. But kind of gotten a stigma of, anybody who makes money is terrible. And probably because of most people who make money are terrible.
It's basically like the big thing catching on right now is, what would make this movie better is if it was rated R.
Yeah.
And, at least make it appropriate. And I guess it's the same thing, talking about Disney is the same thing that we talk about with Marvel all the time. If you do good character development and have a story, all the rest sort of just falls into place. You don't really need a whole lot more than having those two elements very important and put up in front.
If it matters to your characters, then it will matter to your audience.
Yes, that.
And I'll tell you what, we'll have to talk about this more but I got to watch Zootopia, and oh my goodness, yeah, they nailed that. They understood that if it makes sense to the character or matters to the character, then it's going to make sense to the audience, and it's going to matter to the audience. And it was excellent. I love Zootopia. It was every bit as good as everyone was saying. And for that 1% of people on Rotten Tomatoes who said it wasn't good...
That one guy in Salt Lake.
Yeah. You know what, dude? You're wrong. And shut up.
Yeah. I won't have as much input on that because I can't really see Zootopia anytime soon. So...
Yeah, we got to save our movies for Civil War, too, because that's just around the corner.
So much to talk about there.
Yeah. We'll wait till closer to time on that one, but we will be either doing something right before Civil War or right after. We'll have to make that decision as time goes by. Where's Marvel headed? Or, yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting. Definitely have to see Civil War. And Warcraft. And Doctor Strange. That's what happens when you live 90 miles away from a movie theater, folks. You have to be really conscious about what movies you pick. It's a sad day in Rangeley.
Actually, I have a thing on top of that. There's this thing called Screening Room, I think, that somebody was trying to do.
Right.
Yeah, that lets you pay like $50 to watch a movie that just came out like in your house.
So, look at...
I don't know the legal ramifications, but I think if you could get 10 people together and charge them $2 a pop and make a profit, I mean,
Hey, look at... What's going to happen with that is Pirate Bays everywhere, like, oh my goodness.
Oh, sweet, high def.
Yeah. You mean I don't have to record on my camera? And sure, $50. They're the ones that are going to be doing it. I think if they could make it, like, what is a normal...
Pirates don't want to pay for anything.
It's true, but if they feel like they're going to get enough views out of it, they may consider it enough of an investment to get their money back, because they're going to be the only ones with a high def version on release day.
It's true.
I mean, I don't know. I'm worried about that. At the same time, I feel like if they drop that price to about $20, if I'm like,
I would pay as much as $25.
Yeah, okay, I could go up 25.
Because at least I know that 2 people paying $12 a piece, is understandable. The way that they're doing their price division though is that up to $20 is going to the theater it's coming from. So,
which is weird because the ticket for the theater is, I guess they're counting in that salty sweet beverages and snacks.
Yeah, you need, because you're not, the way that theaters work, you're not making your bucks from your ticket sales. You're making it from concessions.
I got a medium Coke. Maybe it was just a small. No, it was a medium. I got a medium Coke. And no, I didn't get popcorn. It's my wife already. I was like, I decided, it's like, I shouldn't get the soda. I'm gonna get the soda. And the guy's all like, that'll be like $19 and some change. I'm like, what?
Awesome.
$19 for one soda. I know that they said that. Oh, sorry, I'm just reading the one before that. It's still like $5 and $6 for just one soda. It was normal, but I was like 19. What happened? I knew things were going up in price, but this is gonna
Seems
kill
a little
me.
steep.
Oh man, I would just pay, because if I couldn't get down, but I really just wanted to see it, I'd be like, okay, I'll pay that.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows?
Yeah. Like I said, if I could charge other people to come to my house and watch it, though, I don't know. I'm sure there's some sort of guidelines, but you can't legally do that. But I mean, really, who's gonna know?
I'd be happy to be like, look I got the movie. If you guys bring the pizza and popcorn and sodas, you divvy out the pizza, popcorn, sodas, movie at my house. I'd be fine with that.
Yep.
Please, I'd be.
In which
happy.
case, $50 is relatively reasonable. I don't have that kind of money most of the time, but you know what? If I could get to see Civil War without leaving my house, it'd be worth it.
Yeah, I have the sound system for it too, so I wouldn't be like, not the greatest, but definitely feel like I'm not getting cheated when I watch a movie at home. So
Yeah.
Well, I feel like
That's probably good.
we have a good rant. So have you come up with your catchy end phrase yet? You had one job.
Heart, stars, and clovers.
Oh, okay. Heart, star. Wait, what?
They're great.
You had one job. Okay, you had several jobs. You had to edit it. I know it took you a total of like 2 minutes last time, but you had to edit it. But the splash art, I like splash art, and I'm not doing pixel art.
Yeah, I was having fun with that.
So I know that takes time. So I'll let it pass. But just this time.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll figure out one.
Or I'll just keep doing my thing. That is Wedge, and I'm the Hardware Hound. And we'll catch you later.